At 10 years old, my elder sister entered the palace for a banquet, and unexpectedly bore a striking resemblance to the eldest princess. Upon returning home, she threatened a hunger strike, demanding the Marquis arrange a bloodsworn kinship test with the eldest princess. Out of goodwill, I sought to protect her reputation, advising her to wait until her coming-of-age ceremony for another opportunity. Unexpectedly, the eldest princess passed away prematurely, succumbing to illness. During the imperial selection, my elder sister, whose resemblance to the late princess moved the Empress Dowager, was betrothed to the virtuous prince, destined for a life of wealth and honor. Yet on the very night she returned to visit her family, she sent someone to force me to drink a potion that rendered me mute, poisoning my throat. It's all your fault. If not for this vile woman's interference, would I have failed to become crown princess? I am the eldest princess's long-lost biological daughter. I should have been showered with imperial favor, cherished by the Empress Dowager, and ultimately wed to the crown prince. The pain choked me. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself reborn back to the year she turned 10. This time, when my elder sister threatened to hang herself and sever ties with our parents. Late that night, I knelt before my stepmother, bowing low. Is there anything this daughter can do to help? I'll serve you, mother. For the Marquis' household, for father, I'll give everything. Tomorrow you shall enter the palace with the First Lady. Remember to be cautious in word and deed. Avoid drawing attention or causing trouble. My wet nurse's admonitions echoed in my ears as I raised my hand to block the dim moonlight. I had reincarnated on the very eve of entering the palace. At this moment, Xia Yaoshu was merely 10 years old. The bone-piercing agony of death was etched into my soul, unforgettable for this lifetime. Tomorrow, upon entering the palace, I will ensure Xia Yaoshu fulfills her wish to become the eldest princess's legitimate daughter. Early the next morning, after leaving the mansion ahead of schedule to arrange everything, I encountered the First Lady. Her expression was cold, yet her tone was unusually gentle. Why haven't you changed your clothes or washed yet? Delaying the hour would be most unwise. I nodded in agreement. Mother, I shall go at once. My birth mother died in childbirth. Had it not been for the First Lady's innate kindness, I would have lived a life worse than that of the servants. Both Xia Yaoshu and I were raised by the First Lady in the inner courtyard. The only difference was that she was the legitimate eldest daughter of the Marquis' household, while I was merely an inconspicuous daughter born to a minor concubine. After washing up, Xia Yaoshu and I boarded the carriage together. Seeing her innocent, childlike expression, I knew only I had been reborn. Upon entering the palace, the lady of the manor instructed Xia Yaoshu and me to follow behind her as we paid respects to the Grand Princess. This was a grand banquet hosted by the Grand Princess, inviting only the wives and daughters of ministers. The ladies gathered merely to exchange household gossip and flaunt their gold, silver, jewels, and fine brocades and silks. The princess, sipping tea and listening to music with leisurely grace, radiated an air of refined nobility. Her gaze settled on Xia Yaoshu as she inquired softly, "Is this the eldest daughter of the Xia family? How old is she now?" Xia Yaoshu rose with a radiant smile, curtsying to the side. "Your Highness, Yaoshu is 10 years old and currently studying at the academy." Hearing this, the princess consort seemed lost in thought, her gaze fixed intently on Xia Yaoshu. She then extended her hand, speaking softly, Come to my side." Xia Yaoshu sat beside the princess and offered her a piece of custard cake. "Your Highness, please try this." The princess paused, then smiled gently. Seeing the princess so warm and gracious, the ladies nearby began to tease. "Miss Xia truly dotes on your Highness, even sharing her favorite custard cake." "Oh, look! Miss Xia's features bear a striking resemblance to your Highness. Such beauty, she'll surely captivate the nation when she comes of age." I stood in the corner, quietly observing Xia Yaoshu. Suddenly, her finger trembled, and the pastry clattered to the floor. Bending to pick it up, her gaze shifted. No longer innocent, it now held a venomous, ruthless glint. She said, "Your Highness, this pastry is soiled." The eldest princess indulged her completely. "If it's soiled, Simply discard it. She commanded the maidservant behind her in a low voice. Withdraw. Bring a fresh one. When Xia Yaoshu's triumphant, obsessive gaze fell upon me, that familiar suffocating sensation washed over me. So she, too, had been reborn. At 10, Xia Yaoshu hadn't yet blossomed into her full features, bearing only a side profile resemblance to the princess. The princess had once been pregnant with a daughter, but the child vanished without a trace after birth. Coincidentally, this daughter shared the same birthday as Xia Yaoshu. In my past life, after the princess died young, Xia Yaoshu grew up resembling her more and more. She deliberately mimicked the eldest princess's mannerisms and habits, as if declaring she was the princess's daughter. The deeper her obsession grew, the more she hated me. She was convinced it was my dissuasion after that banquet that had thwarted her path to becoming royalty. Fortunately, Xia Yaoshu had only just been reborn. Everything was still in its infancy, and she dared not act rashly. The favor she had just won from the eldest princess made her hesitate to demand a blood test for recognition right then. Not until the palace banquet ended. Xia Yaoshu reluctantly clasped the eldest princess's hand, her eyes glistening with tears as she pleaded pitifully, "May I see your highness again? Shu'er loves your highness and doesn't want to leave you." The princess, softened by her plea, ruffled her hair and whispered, "Of course. I welcome you anytime." With permission granted, Xia Yaoshu reluctantly followed the first lady back to the estate. The carriage still rolled along the palace road. I deliberately lifted the curtain to peer outside. Sure enough, whispers from neighboring carriages drifted in. Xia Yaoshu pressed her lips together, her fingertips digging deeper into the curtain. The first lady pulled the curtain down, glancing at her. "Don't forget your roots after visiting the palace. Sure. You must study diligently. Only by understanding the wisdom in books can you manage a household well. Beauty alone won't protect you forever." Xia Yaoshu shot her a cold glance. Her eyes burned with hatred, yet she remained silent. I knew she was reveling in the joy of her rebirth, secretly plotting to seek recognition from the princess for her true lineage. The first lady was not favored in the Marquis' household. Instead, the two secondary wives held my father's affection. After giving birth to Xia Yaoshu, she devoted herself entirely to her daughter. She was exceptionally strict with her. Not only did she spend a fortune hiring female tutors to teach her reading and writing, but she also engaged court musicians to instruct her in playing the zither and dancing. Thus, in her previous life, Xia Yaoshu gained fame as soon as she came of age, becoming renowned throughout the capital as a talented scholar. The first lady had shown me kindness, and I repaid that kindness to them. In my previous life, Xia Yaoshu accompanied the first lady to the palace banquet for the first time. Because of a single remark from someone else, she insisted on disowning the first lady, demanding to go to her father to request a blood test to prove her royal lineage. I stayed by her side, pleading earnestly, "Sister, the banquet has just ended, and the turmoil hasn't settled. Why not wait another year or two? When the eldest princess leaves the palace next year to establish her own estate and hosts a banquet, you can seek the truth then." But unexpectedly, before the eldest princess could leave the palace, she withered like a flower and passed away in the palace, dying of illness. My elder sister could never be recognized as my blood relative, and thus she came to hate me with a vengeance. After becoming the virtuous princess consort, she returned to visit her family. She paid dearly for a loyal assassin who personally forced a paralytic toxin down my throat, poisoning my vocal cords. She spat venomously. "I am the eldest princess's long-lost biological daughter. I should have been a beloved princess, cherished by my maternal grandmother, the Empress Dowager. I should have had the chance to marry the crown prince. If it weren't for you, you wretched woman, standing in my way, would I not have become the crown princess?" She poisoned me, leaving me mute. I endured torture in my room, writhing in agony, begging on my knees for her mercy. Xia Yaoshu kicked me away with utter coldness in her eyes. "Besides my mother, you're the one most deserving of death." Then, leaving me begging within the burning chamber, she ordered her assassins to set the room ablaze. I was burned alive, unable even to crawl out. In this new life, I will not stand in her way. Instead, I will aid her every step of the way, ensuring she becomes the eldest princess's own daughter. Ever since the palace banquet ended, Xia Yaoshu has changed completely. She became silent and withdrawn, locking herself in her room, refusing food and drink. Everyone in the mansion noticed something was amiss. Even her father, who rarely meddled in household affairs, sensed something was wrong. My stepmother once tried to offer words of comfort, only to be driven out by Xia Yaoshu. She uttered just one sentence. "You are not my mother. You have no right to interfere." Xia Yaoshu adopted a no-holds-barred attitude, taking her grievances directly to my father. One day, during a shared meal, she placed a farewell letter before him. Though my father seldom interfered with Xia Yaoshu, he indulged his legitimate daughter greatly. Seeing her hand deliver the letter, his expression softened, a faint smile touching his lips. He held the letter up to his two secondary wives, boasting, "It seems my daughter has grown up. Too shy to speak her mind. She's written everything she wanted to say in this letter for her father." Both concubines, known for their sweet words and sharp tongues, offered shallow smiles. "Sure has always been sensible. Your Excellency is truly blessed." What intimate words did she write in this letter? Might Your Excellency read it aloud for us? I sipped my porridge slowly, carefully observing my father's expression. His features relaxed, a hint of amusement visible as he opened the letter. But upon reading its contents, his smile froze at the corners of his mouth. He looked up at Xia Yaoshu in disbelief. "Qing Xiuyue, is this the fine daughter you raised? To sever our father-daughter ties and utterly disown you as her mother." The First Lady's face darkened as she snatched the letter to examine it closely. Xia Yaoshu's eyebrows arched, her expression brimming with defiant pride. "Not just you. I sever ties with every single person in this entire Marquis household. You are not my father at all. My status and standing are far beyond what a mere Marquis like you could ever hope to match. What you don't know is this. My mother is the current reigning princess. I am her long-lost young princess. After I bribed the maidservant in her service, Xia Yaoshu was constantly stirred up day and night. She grew increasingly convinced she was the eldest princess's biological daughter. For the eldest princess had once borne a daughter out of wedlock. That child vanished without a trace after birth. To others, however, Xia Yaoshu seemed utterly mad to entertain such audacious notions. My father tore the letter to shreds in fury, flinging the scraps into her face. "Attendants! Lock the eldest daughter in her room to reflect on her actions. Let her out only when she has regained her senses." As the words fell, my father issued another stern order, his voice filled with rage. "Whoever dares to breathe a word of today's events shall be dealt with according to family law." The two concubines paled with fear, but before the two burly wet nurses could reach Xia Yaoshu, she suddenly drew a dagger concealed in her sleeve and plunged it into her own throat. The First Lady's face twisted in shock, her disappointment palpable as she demanded, "Xia Yaoshu, are you truly so resolute? You have chilled my heart to its core." The crowd gasped, their eyes fixed on Xia Yaoshu in panic, fearing she might do something reckless. Xia Yaoshu lifted her chin, her resolute gaze sweeping over everyone before curling her lips. "I am not playing games with you. If you do not release me to seek my birth mother, I shall take my own life within the Marquis' residence." She pressed the dagger fiercely against her throat, a stark crimson trail appearing. My father, utterly dismayed, accused his wife. "A lowly background breeds no good children. She's gone mad, daring to link herself to imperial kin. Who doesn't know the princess's Achilles heel is that mysterious little princess? If she touches the princess's sore spot, our entire marquisate will suffer." The concubines behind my father chimed in. "Exactly, madam. You can't even raise a girl properly. This child doesn't even acknowledge you as her birth mother. How much she must hate you. Madam, if this scandal spreads beyond the Marquis' residence, the entire capital will be laughing at the Marquis. Can you bear that responsibility?" The principal wife closed her eyes, concealing her endless sorrow. When she opened them again, her gaze was icy. "Xia Yaoshu, you may leave, but before you go, You must personally write a letter of severance to prove it. From this day forward, your wealth and status shall have no connection whatsoever to the Marquis' household." My father's face darkened with fury. Yet faced with Xia Yaoshu's threat of death, he found no words to counter her. A flicker of triumph crossed Xia Yaoshu's face as she eagerly began writing her farewell letter. She didn't even bother with paper, instead tearing a strip from her robe and pricking her finger to write her parting blood oath. She flung the blood-stained paper before the First Lady. "From this moment on, I am the sole daughter of the eldest princess. I have no connection whatsoever to your Yongyi Marquis household." Xia Yaoshu departed with utter resolve, never once looking back. My father tried to have her stopped, but the First Lady collected the farewell letter expressionlessly and said coldly, "Let her go." Though the First Lady came from humble origins, she had served as the Marquis' household matriarch for several years. With my father absent, no one dared defy her orders. My father was deeply disappointed in Xia Yaoshu, but he blamed the First Lady even more for her reckless actions. With her gone, who would represent the Marquis' household in the imperial selection 5 years later? Hearing this, Lady Hui immediately perked up. She said with a smile, "Your lordship, the First Lady has no sons and has failed to raise her daughter properly. Why not entrust her stewardship to me? My daughter Lingy could enter the palace selection in the future and support the Marquis' household." Lady Hui had one daughter, but she was still young, only 8 years old. The other Lady Mei was deeply displeased. "The First Lady's quarters are secluded enough, why should you get the household authority? My son Xiaolin is, after all, the Marquis' only son. You can't possibly monopolize this authority. First Lady, since you failed to raise your daughter properly, just live out your days in the Marquis' residence in peace. Don't speak of this matter again." The two secondary consorts spoke with palpable hostility, their disdain for the First Lady palpable. The First Lady, of course, heard every bit of their scorn, but with Xia Yaoshu gone, there was no one left to fight for her honor. My father was overwhelmed with pressing matters and had no time for this. He flung his sleeves aside and roared, "All of you, out!" Though displeased, the two secondary wives dared not defy my father's command and reluctantly departed. I too bowed my head and exited, but instead of leaving, I stood in the courtyard. Soon, I heard the sound of my father and the principal wife arguing inside the house. It wasn't until late into the night, after every item in the room had been smashed to pieces, that the noise finally ceased. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. My father's icy gaze fell upon me. "Who gave you permission to enter?" I knelt before them, bowing deeply. "Father, Madam." Madam paused, her gaze turning deep and intense. I remained kneeling, demonstrating my loyalty. "Your daughter, Xia Fuiying, wishes to acknowledge Madam as my mother. I pledge to serve you, Mother, and dedicate everything to the Marquis' household and father." Madam's eyes remained distant as she calmly appraised me. "Fuiying, Yaoshu has already broken my heart. I cannot decide your fate. Let your father handle it. If he agrees to transfer you to my name, then I will consider it." I clenched my fingers, kneeling on the ground, silently staring at the floor. This was the answer I expected, but I must fight for it tonight. Even if I fail, I must make my intentions known. Only then will my future actions be seen, rather than ignored like weeds as they always have been. My father snorted coldly. "Xia Fuiying, ambitious beyond your years. Your elder sister has barely departed, and already you covet her position? You, a mere daughter born to a concubine, do you think you're worthy? So what if I'm ambitious? The First Lady favors those with ambition. Only the ambitious can survive in this Marquis' household." That tone of contempt truly cut deep. "I advise you to abandon this notion. Your turn will never come. Lingy's bloodline is nobler than yours, and she holds greater status." With that, my father stormed off in anger. The First Lady, her heart wounded by Xia Yaoshu, had no inclination to comfort me. After they left, I knelt on the ground all night until my knees could no longer bear my weight. Leaning against the wall, I made my way out. This was in the First Lady's courtyard. The longer I knelt, the more it proved my resolve. Back then, I thought staying quiet and invisible behind Xia Yaoshu would keep me safe. Reality proved otherwise. This lifetime, I will fight and seize. I will declare my ambition to the world. My mother passed away early, leaving me no possessions. The only item she bequeathed was a golden hairpin, entrusted to me by the wet nurse after her difficult childbirth. I retrieved the wrapped hairpin from the wooden chest beneath the bed. In the candlelight, the exquisite gold gleamed brilliantly. The gift my mother left me would serve a great purpose today. 2 years prior, the First Lady had specially hired a female tutor to instruct Xia Yaoshu in her studies, reading and calligraphy, within the manor. On this particular day, the tutor arrived for her usual lesson, only to find Xia Yaoshu nowhere to be seen. As she stepped out of the courtyard, I called out to her. Teacher, the eldest madam, seated in the courtyard, set down her ledger and turned her gaze upon me. A flicker of surprise crossed her eyes when she saw me produce the golden hairpin. I held it out to the teacher. Teacher, would you teach me to read and write? Fui Ying has secretly studied before and recognizes a few characters. It should not be too difficult to instruct me. I don't know how much monthly stipend the madam pays you, but this golden hairpin was my mother's keepsake and also my deposit. Once Fui Ying saves up her monthly salary, she'll pay the teacher's monthly fee. I bowed, speaking earnestly. Please accept me as your student. The female teacher glanced at the madam. I swallowed nervously, fearing the madam might object, but the lady of the house remained silent, as if giving her tacit consent. The female tutor smiled gently and accepted the golden hairpin. Very well, she said. Teaching one pupil is the same as teaching two. Relieved, I wiped the sweat from my brow and followed the tutor into the study. From that day on, I treasured this opportunity to learn, studying with greater diligence than most. Except for meals and sleep, I devoted every waking moment to reading and calligraphy practice. Even when my hands grew numb and inky, I refused to put down my brush. Seeing this, my wet nurse would sigh with heartache. My dear, you've been sitting like this all afternoon, you'll strain your eyes. Chuan Young, I wonder if all the festival gifts I've given over the years would be enough to hire a courtesan? Before I could finish, the wet nurse covered my mouth. Don't let the Marquis hear that. He forbids you from associating with courtesans. I blinked, smiling silently. For music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, unable to afford a palace scholar, I hired a courtesan instead. Beyond the main and side gates, the estate held a small, locked door near the woodshed. Its key was specially made, lost a decade ago. By some twist of fate, it now lay in my hands. Every few days, while my father was away on business, I'd have Ewer slip through that small door, then lead her unseen through my mother's dilapidated courtyard. At night, I had her teach me dance and zither, though I'd secretly learned some basics from my elder sister. Practicing day and night left my feet bleeding and my ankles swollen like white radishes. Yet by day, fearing suspicion, I swallowed the pain and acted as if nothing was wrong. Half a year later, on my birthday, the lady of the manor found my room. She made me a steaming bowl of longevity noodles. Every year on my birthday, she brought me longevity noodles. I thought she might not send them this year. Yet here I was, eating them once more. Blame me? Why blame the lady? My mother died young. Without you, I'd be treated worse than a servant in this household. Fui Ying is grateful for your kindness. The lady smiled faintly. But if you wish to remain by my side, your trials will be far harsher than these past 6 months. I rose once more and knelt before her. Fui Ying fears no hardship. Fui Ying vows to be your shield, blocking the blades of the Marquis' household. Seeing my resolve, the lady perhaps thought of Xia Yaoshu. She sighed softly and murmured, if only Yaoshu had been as obedient as you. Do you know she has now become the adopted daughter of the Grand Princess? Very well. Since you call me mother, from this day forward, you shall be the eldest legitimate daughter of the Marquis' household. Her words were final, and from that moment onward, I finally possessed the right to challenge fate. That very night, all my belongings were moved to the lady's Liuguang courtyard. I knew she hadn't truly accepted me yet. For the past 10 years, Since giving birth to Xia Yaoshu, the lady had never conceived again. Meanwhile, Lady Hui and Lady Mei had successively borne children. This made the lady's position as the principal wife increasingly precarious. Now, with Xia Yaoshu's sudden departure, the Marquis had even stripped her of her household management duties. But it didn't matter. The First Lady treated me well. Whatever she desired, with me by her side, would be hers eventually. My treatment mirrored that of the former Xia Yaoshu. The First Lady hired Master Gong to teach me dance, and each day I must practice zither, needlework, and embroidery. A year of such instruction has transformed me remarkably. My father never cared much for his unremarkable daughter, visiting only every few months. But in my 11th year, he finally took notice. During a meal, he suddenly studied me intently, a hint of satisfaction curling his lips. Ever since Fu Ying was kept in the madam's quarters, she's been raised impeccably. Who could ever guess she was once motherless? Madame Hui shot me a piercing glance and remarked with a sneer, "No matter how beautiful, she's still just a substitute." She beamed as she added, "The First Lady keeps her close because she misses her daughter so dearly. Look how much Fu Ying's clothes and style resemble the late Aiju." After all, the First Lady was the legitimate wife. Being in her quarters meant I was her child. Her words not only humiliated me but also brought shame upon the First Lady. The First Lady immediately dropped her chopsticks, her face turning cold as she declared, "Xia Yaoshu is now the eldest princess's adopted daughter, deeply favored by the eldest princess and the Empress Dowager in the palace. How could Fu Ying compare? Fu Ying owes her position entirely to her own efforts. Instead of wasting your energy on her, Lady Hui, you'd do better to teach Lingy properly." Lady Hui, furious, bit her lower lip and retorted, "My Lingy isn't half bad either." To stop their quarrel, my father interjected, "Enough! What kind of spectacle is this? Only one of Lingy and Fui Ying can enter the palace for the selection. Our daughters from the Marquis' household must seize the initiative and secure a place in the Eastern Palace." Madame Mei sat nearby, chuckling to herself. She believed that possessing the Marquis' only precious son allowed her to sit back and watch the tigers fight. But she failed to grasp a fundamental truth. In palace intrigues or family feuds, the one who laughs first never laughs last. Over the years, Lady Hui had grown increasingly hostile toward me. Each time she saw me, it was as if I were a malignant tumor she wished to peel off alive. Her resentment simmered until this day, when I rode in a carriage to the temple to pray for Lady Ho's blessings. The horse suddenly bolted, rearing and bucking wildly. The coachman couldn't hold the reins, and the carriage careened into the woods, slamming into a tree trunk. I couldn't stay seated inside the rocking carriage. Dizzy and disoriented, I watched helplessly as the carriage hurtled toward the tree, certain it would shatter into pieces. My heart seized, a wave of panic washing over me. "Jump! Jump now!" A sudden flash of clarity made me realize I had to leap. Jumping now might mean minor injuries, but staying put would surely break my legs. My body acted faster than my mind. I leaped from the carriage. Since the carriage had veered off the road and crashed into the woods, I suffered multiple scrapes all over my body. Thankfully, I was unharmed, and my face was fine. The driver, hearing my words, leaped out alongside me. The horse, however, crashed into a tree and collapsed lifelessly onto the ground. "Miss, I don't know what happened." The horse suddenly went wild. "Are you all right?" I got up and went to inspect the horse, discovering it was foaming at the mouth, clearly drugged. They intended to use a mad horse as an excuse to kill me. "Leave this horse behind. We'll hire another carriage and return first." When I climbed back into the carriage, I brought a sharp stone with me. By the time I dismounted again, my body was covered in abrasions, oozing blood, my face smeared with mud and dust. The moment I saw the First Lady and my father, my eyes reddened, and tears streamed down my face. "Father, Mother, someone tried to kill me." I sobbed as I recounted the entire incident from start to finish. "Your daughter is literate and could tell at a glance that this horse wasn't mad, it had been drugged. Had I not been thrown from the carriage, I might never have seen you again in this lifetime." My father's expression darkened, his eyes clouding as he scanned the room. The First Lady commanded, "Steward, conduct a thorough investigation immediately." The search lasted the entire day. At dusk, the steward brought forth a young maid. Kneeling on the ground, she trembled as she confessed, "Last night, when I went out to relieve myself, I saw Xiao Taohong, the maid serving Lady Hui, sprinkling powder into the horse feed. I was too afraid to say anything at the time. I never imagined something would happen to the eldest young miss today." Lady Hui flew into a rage, slapping the maid across the face. "What nonsense are you spouting? Quickly, someone dragged this worthless servant away." The eldest madam intervened, ordering the steward to inspect the trough and summoning a physician to examine the feed. After a thorough and meticulous examination, the physician finally discovered poison in the spilled feed on the ground. This slow-acting poison gradually caused the horses to lose control and die. With both eyewitness testimony and physical evidence now present, Lady Hui could no longer deny her guilt. My father flew into a rage on the spot. "I once thought you gentle and virtuous, but what a venomous heart you possess. How dare you target the children of this household?" Though Fui Ying was born a concubine's daughter, she has long been registered under the lady's name. She is a legitimate daughter of this Marquis' household. All these years, I see you have forgotten your place as a mere secondary wife. Lady Hui was so terrified she knelt on the spot. She begged my father for forgiveness. Though he disdained me, he also disapproved of Lady Hui's actions. "Return the stewardship of the household to the main wife immediately. From this day forward, you are no longer a secondary wife of this Marquis' household. With such jealousy, you are fit only to be a concubine." After Lady Hui was sent back to reflect behind closed doors, I followed the main wife back to the Liuguang courtyard. She remained silent. Upon entering the courtyard, her eyes suddenly reddened as she saw my body covered in wounds. "Your father may not see it, but I understand. You should never have borne so many injuries." After a moment's silence, I replied, "Mother, what belongs to you, your daughter cannot bear to see shared with another." The First Lady embraced me tenderly, sighing softly, "From now on, in private, you may call me mother." After this incident, Lady Hui, demoted to concubine, grew notably quieter. Control over the Marquis' household now rested solely with the First Lady and Lady May. In my past life, the First Lady never conceived again. She sought remedies and treatments, yet to no avail. In the end, they accepted it as fate. But last year, I had perused medical texts and learned that female infertility has many causes. After giving birth to Xia Yaoshu, the First Lady's body remained unharmed. She couldn't possibly suffer from infertility. Then, in the year I was to reach my coming-of-age ceremony, the First Lady fell gravely ill. She refused to see a physician, instead spending her days burning incense and chanting sutras in the Buddhist hall. The incense burner in the hall had been used for over a decade. That day, I summoned the physician directly. The moment he opened the door, his expression shifted. He inquired of the lady, "What fragrance does the lady wear that is so distinct?" The lady frowned. "I have never worn perfume. Perhaps I've absorbed the scent from the incense burner after spending so much time in the hall." The doctor sniffed the air in the hall, his brow slightly furrowed. "Might I be permitted to examine the inner chambers?" The First Lady suspected he was putting on airs. This was a Buddhist hall. How could an outsider simply enter? Before she could refuse, the doctor spoke. "Has the First Lady been unable to conceive for years, spending her days burning incense in this hall?" "The incense in this hall is likely problematic. It contains high levels of musk, which can render women infertile." At these words, the lady's expression abruptly changed. How could that be? The incense in this hall is specially delivered from my family's shop." Despite her words, she no longer stopped the doctor from proceeding to examine. Strangely, however, he found nothing wrong with the incense itself, nor with the ashes after burning. After pondering, I suggested, "Could the problem lie with the incense burner?" The physician's eyes flickered. He examined it again and soon declared with certainty, "This incense burner is severely compromised. Its inner walls have been scorched from a decade of use. but there's a layer of musk inside. Once lit, the incense it produces becomes tainted. The reason the First Lady has been unable to conceive all these years lies precisely here. The First Lady's body trembled, her eyes betraying unmasked shock and fury. She drew a deep breath, forcing back her rage, and ordered in a low voice, "Go fetch the Marquis and Lady May." After my father and Lady May arrived, the physician recounted the entire incident. The eldest madam turned to Lady May and, without a word, struck her across the face with a resounding slap. "If I recall correctly, this incense burner was your gift to me the very first year you entered this household. That year, seeing how obedient and sensible you seemed, I agreed to the Marquis making you his secondary wife. Little did I know you'd present me with such a gift in your very first year." My father was even more furious. "No wonder the household hasn't produced a legitimate eldest son, it's all Lady May's doing." Lady May stubbornly refused to admit guilt. "Madam, you're slandering me. How could I harbor such a wicked heart, even with irrefutable evidence?" She still tried to wriggle out of it. The belatedly arriving concubine Hui immediately joined in, tears streaming down her face. "Sister May, no wonder I suffered so many unexplained miscarriages these past years. Could the incense burner you gave me also be cursed?" My father grew even more furious. He ordered her sent directly to a temple for seclusion. Only during annual festivals was she permitted to see Xia Lin. Out of respect for bearing the Marquis's heir, she was spared demotion to concubine or execution. The physician prescribed tonics for the eldest madam, instructing her to take them regularly, perhaps she could still conceive. I personally brewed the medicine for the First Lady and brought it to her. "Inger, you arranged for the doctor to visit the Buddhist hall. Did you know all along there was something wrong with it?" Hearing the First Lady's question, my heart tightened. I had indeed suspected the Buddhist hall was problematic last year. The First Lady burned incense there daily, and no harmful drugs could be found in her courtyard. But the Buddhist hall itself had never been inspected by anyone. Seeing my silence, the First Lady suddenly grasped my hand. "Mother isn't blaming you, Fui Ying. It's because of you that I could reclaim the household management from the two secondary wives and regain the chance to conceive again. After the new year, the Crown Prince's selection of consorts will begin. As the eldest legitimate daughter of the Yoni Marquis household, Mother will certainly lend you a helping hand. Next month is the eldest princess's birthday banquet. You shall accompany me to the palace." I understood at once. Only now had the First Lady truly accepted me, regarding me as her own flesh and blood. This rightful position as the eldest legitimate daughter of the Marquis, since Xia Yaoshu disdained it, I would certainly claim it for her. The eldest princess's birthday banquet was approaching. In my past life, before Xia Yaoshu could even reach the age of coming of age to seek recognition, she had already withered away in this winter. Over the years, I heard that Xia Yaoshu was deeply favored in the palace, protected by the eldest princess and the Empress Dowager. Yet despite this, they never performed the blood recognition ritual. She remains merely the princess's adopted daughter. Those within the palace are adept at flattering the high and trampling the low. Deep down, they still look down on Xia Yaoshu. Even the emperor has not granted her the title of princess. The First Lady mentioned that for this selection of brides for the crown prince, the princess herself did not wish for her to participate. Yet Xia Yaoshu is so eager to marry the crown prince, to become the empress and set the standard for the realm. In the end, it will likely all be for naught. Upon entering the palace, Xia Yaoshu's first sight fell upon Lady De and me. She scrutinized me from head to toe, her eyes flickering with resentment and contempt. Then, Xia Yaoshu led her entourage before me, her mocking smile curling her lips. TSK. The First Lady must have been blinded by the desert sands. Even a lowly concubine's daughter like you managed to enter the palace. Were it not for my severing ties with the Marquis' household, would you be basking in such glory today? Shouldn't you first kowtow to me and express your gratitude? I smiled faintly, responding calmly. Fu Ying knows her lowly status falls short of yours. Yet you hold no official title within the palace. How should I address you? To call you princess outright would likely be improper. This struck Xia Yaoshu's most sensitive nerve. She loathed anyone questioning her title. Nominally an adopted daughter, She remained without formal recognition, never recorded in the imperial genealogy. Seeing Xia Yaoshu block my path, the First Lady stepped forward and took my hand. With your mother by your side, what have you to fear? At these words, Xia Yaoshu's face darkened instantly, her mouth twisted in a grimace, her expression turning utterly grim. After all, the First Lady was Xia Yaoshu's birth mother. She had long since lost all affection for Xia Yaoshu and spoke to her with unmistakable harshness. Though ostensibly addressing me, her words were clearly meant for her daughter's ears. Inger, it is your mother's fault. Before entering the palace, I neglected to advise you properly. Miss Yaoshu is now the adopted daughter of the eldest princess. But palace rules are strict. If the princess refuses to acknowledge you as bloodkin, you mustn't casually call her princess. After speaking, she turned to Xia Yaoshu. I truly don't know, staying by the eldest princess's side in this ambiguous position. Are you really her adopted daughter? Or just a maid? I suppressed a smile at the corner of my mouth and followed the First Lady to take my seat. Xia Yaoshu was furious. All these years in the palace, she had swum like a fish in water, relying on the favor of the princess and the Empress Dowager. Though not the emperor's birth mother, the Empress Dowager had raised him from infancy under her name. Had he not been the legitimate heir, and had her maternal clan not held such sway, he would never have ascended the throne. After ascending the throne, the emperor held the Empress Dowager in profound respect. With her favor, who would dare speak such words to Xia Yaoshu? Now, the palace banquet was about to begin. To maintain her image, Xia Yaoshu forced herself to suppress her anger, walking to the front of the hall with a smile. At that moment, someone praised Xia Yaoshu. Miss Shu truly bears an uncanny resemblance to the eldest princess. Now that she's grown, the spirit in her eyes and brows is utterly identical. We hear the eldest princess's health is fragile, relying entirely on her daughter's devoted care. Even the Empress Dowager holds her in great affection. Hearing these compliments, Xia Yaoshu exhaled deeply, her lips curving back into a satisfied smile. When the eldest princess arrived, everyone immediately paid their respects. I glanced up at the eldest princess. Her eyes and brows bore the pallor of illness, her gaze utterly weary. She couldn't help but cough as she walked. Xia Yaoshu promptly stepped forward to assist her to her seat. She then sat beside the eldest princess, pouring tea and water for her. The eldest lady's expression remained serene, as if she had long ceased to care about her. Soon after, the emperor and the Empress Dowager both arrived. After all, this was the eldest princess's birthday banquet. Moreover, given her failing health, this might well be her final birthday celebration. The emperor and Empress Dowager were expected to attend. The entire banquet hall was filled with nobles and imperial relatives. Only the eldest princess could command such prestige. Over the years, the eldest princess had adopted Xia Yaoshu as her adopted daughter, yet for some reason, never performed the blood test to confirm kinship. The imperial family never acknowledged her. Now, with the eldest princess gravely ill and facing imminent death, Xia Yaoshu would be left utterly defenseless. Then, forget being an adopted daughter, she might even end up as a servant or maid to the Empress Dowager. After all, she was different now from her past life. In her previous existence, she had the status of the eldest legitimate daughter of a Marquis, sufficient to marry the virtuous prince as his consort. Therefore, after my deliberate provocation earlier, Xia Yaoshu would be even more desperate to prove her identity. Having endured years of humiliation, she would seize this final opportunity to declare openly before everyone, she is the eldest princess's long-lost biological daughter. Thus, when it was Xia Yaoshu's turn to present her gift, she suddenly knelt before the eldest princess and performed a deep bow. Yaoshu has served by your highness's side for many years, and your highness has been exceptionally kind to her. Her eyes fixed on the eldest princess with fervent hope. Her voice grew increasingly agitated. Yaoshu once had a dream. In it, someone kept calling her name. When the dream faded, she realized that person was your highness. Xia Yaoshu's eyes shone brightly, filled with boundless hope, as she trembled and said, "That person told me, your highness is Yaoshu's birth mother." It is precisely because of this that Yao Shu abandoned the Marquis' residence at the age of 10 and resolutely stood by Her Highness's side. At these words, the assembled guests exchanged bewildered glances, their expressions filled with utter disbelief. Only the eldest princess's weary, clouded eyes gradually cleared. As she gazed at Xia Yao Shu, they brimmed with boundless excitement and affection. Those eyes seemed to look through her, fixated on another person. The princess covered her face and coughed softly. Is this dream truly real? Seeing the princess so moved, Xia Yao Shu felt even more certain that she was her birth mother. Her eyes glistened with tears as she choked out, "If Yao Shu speaks falsehoods, may she meet a terrible end." Xia Yao Shu bowed her head heavily to the ground, her voice trembling. "I humbly request Your Highness to perform a blood recognition ritual with Yao Shu to prove my identity." The words sent a ripple of shock through the entire hall. Could she truly be the princess's biological daughter? But why had she been abandoned? How dare Xia Yao Shu utter such audacious words? Did she not know that child was the princess's forbidden topic? If she truly is the eldest princess's biological daughter, then the Marquis' household will surely bear responsibility. Have you all forgotten? Xia Yao Shu was once the Marquis' legitimate eldest daughter. This is utterly impossible. The eldest princess's child. As the words fell, an elderly princess consort silenced the voices. It was as if the eldest princess's child were a secret never to be revealed. My gaze fell upon Physician Gu, dispatched by the Imperial Medical Academy to stand guard tonight. No one knew that Physician Gu was the neighbor and childhood sweetheart of my mother. After failing the provincial exams, he realized the imperial examinations weren't his path. So he turned to medicine, dreaming of returning home in glory to give my mother a better life. But by the time he passed the exams and finally entered the Imperial Medical Academy, my mother had already been sent by her parents to become a concubine in the Marquis' household. There was no longer any possibility for them. Several years ago, Physician Gu had someone track me down. He wished to adopt me as his daughter, free me from the Marquis' household, and provide me with a new residence far from its troubles. But I refused to leave. I preferred to witness the moment when Xia Yao Shu's prideful delusions crumbled. How utterly humiliating that would be. Xia Yao Shu remained kneeling on the ground. The hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. After a long moment, the princess waved her hand. "Summon Physician Gu. I shall personally perform the blood recognition ritual." Seeing my reluctance to leave the Marquis' residence, Physician Gu suggested I recognize him as my uncle. In his youth, he had received great kindness from my mother's family. He wished to repay that debt, so I encouraged him to strive for a transfer to the princess's residence over the years. Fortunately, heaven rewarded my scheming. Uncle Gu not only became the princess's personal physician but also gained her profound trust. Meanwhile, Xia Yao Shu schemed relentlessly to ingratiate herself with the princess's attendants. I deliberately left a loophole, allowing Uncle Gu to occasionally accept gifts from her. This way, at the critical moment, he could turn the tables. When Physician Gu approached carrying a bowl of water and clean silver needles, all eyes instantly fixed upon the liquid. The water was crystal clear. The drop of blood from the princess's fingertips stood out starkly, almost blindingly vivid. Xia Yao Shu could barely contain her impatience. She swallowed hard, stepping forward to pierce her own finger and let the blood drip into the bowl. All eyes were fixed, not daring to blink, for fear of missing this earth-shattering secret. Even the Empress Dowager's emotions were stirred, her gaze lingering on the bowl for an eternity. Only moments later did the 2 drops of blood gradually blend together. At that instant, Xia Yao Shu's eyes widened, her heart finally settling. Without a second thought, she threw herself at the eldest princess's side, tears falling as she pleaded pitifully, "Will you acknowledge me now? I am your biological daughter." "Mother!" The princess consort wept in shock, her trembling arms wrapping around Xia Yao Shu. Uncle shot me a glance before discreetly removing the bowl. I intended for Xia Yao Shu to become the princess consort's daughter. Only then could she be permanently excluded from the palace selection. And her best days were yet to come. The princess held her tightly, repeating over and over, "I knew it. I knew I wouldn't lose you. My dear daughter." This touching scene left many guests looking puzzled and shocked. Who would have thought Yao Shu was actually the princess's daughter? Impossible. Could the palace rumors be false? How could she be the princess's daughter? Clearly. Whispers of astonishment rippled through the banquet hall. The emperor cleared his throat in displeasure. Instantly, all murmurs ceased as the crowd fell silent. The Empress Dowager rose and declared, Yao Shu has served by the princess's side for many years. Since she is her biological daughter, Your Majesty, I request you grant Yao Shu the title of princess. Xia Yao Shu's lips curved upward in a smug smile. She rose eagerly to offer her thanks. But before she could speak, a loud voice boomed from outside the hall. Hold on! I frowned, turning toward the source of the sound. Prince Xian strode in, a sharp sword at his waist, his gaze piercing and cold. His gaze swept over Xia Yao Shu before shifting, his soft eyes resting on the eldest princess. Prince Xian has been assisting His Majesty with inspections at the distant frontier. He is the eldest princess's own younger brother, and also the Empress Dowager's youngest son. Separated for years, they had never met. Seeing Prince Xian again, the Empress Dowager's eyes welled up. It was common knowledge that the current emperor was not the Empress Dowager's biological son. Years ago, when the emperor was the third prince, his birth mother died during childbirth. The Empress Dowager then adopted him to raise under her care. The eldest princess and the Prince of Xian were born only after the emperor had secured his position as crown prince. At the time of the late emperor's passing, the Prince of Xian was still very young. Ultimately, the Empress Dowager decided to firmly support the crown prince's ascension to the throne, granting her own son the title of prince. After ascending the throne, the third prince, grateful for his foster mother's nurturing, always treated and respected her as his birth mother. Yet deep down, he still harbored apprehension toward the Prince of Xian. Consequently, he routinely dispatched the latter to inspect the border regions, keeping him permanently barred from the capital. This time, however, their paths had unexpectedly crossed. 2 months prior, upon learning his elder sister was gravely ill, he wished to surprise her with a birthday banquet, so he sent a message by carrier pigeon to the emperor alone, without informing her or the Empress Dowager. Thus, his sudden appearance now astonished everyone. The Prince of Xian knelt on one knee, eyes lowered, and said, Your humble son pays respects to Mother Empress Dowager and His Majesty the Emperor. The Empress Dowager concealed her agitation, feigning composure as she motioned for him to rise. Your humble son learned of the imperial sister's grave illness, today being her birthday. I spurred my horse to return swiftly to the capital to celebrate with her. Hearing this, the eldest princess's gaze softened as she murmured, The journey from the frontier to the capital takes days at the very least. Your Imperial Highness truly has a kind heart. The prince smiled. Compared to seeing my imperial brother and imperial sister, what hardship these days could possibly matter? Then, his eyebrow arched slightly, his deep, piercing gaze fixed on Xia Yao Shu as he frowned ever so slightly. My timing is rather unfortunate. I missed the grand spectacle of the family reunion. He drew the water skin from his waist and casually poured its contents into a bowl. Prince Xian frowned, then produced a dagger. As he slid his finger, he explained, Your Highness and I are siblings by blood. Since you successfully recognized our sister, you can certainly do the same with me. With that, a drop of blood splashed into the water. He lifted his eyes to Xia Yao Shu, gesturing for her to approach. Xia Yao Shu truly believed she was the eldest princess's biological daughter, never suspecting anyone was secretly orchestrating events behind the scenes. Even with all my careful planning, I never anticipated the Prince of Xian, absent from the capital for 2 years, would suddenly return. Xia Yao Shu believed herself completely safe. Excitedly, she stepped forward, offering her finger for the Prince of Xian to prick. I sighed inwardly. 2 drops of blood slowly spread in the water, showing no sign of merging. Prince Xian's brow furrowed, his gaze instantly sharpening. Even the eldest princess couldn't contain her surprise, her puzzled eyes fixed on Xia Yao Shu. Prince Xian's tone turned icy as he demanded, What is this? Xia Yao Shu paled, her eyes darting frantically toward the eldest princess. Her voice trembling, she murmured in bewilderment, Why won't they merge? They clearly merged just now. I am the eldest princess's own daughter, why won't they merge? This can't be. Xia Yaoshu staggered, nearly collapsing to the ground. It felt as though a belief she had clung to for years had crumbled. The Prince of Xian swiftly drew the sword at his waist, its tip pressing against her throat. Who are you? You imposter? You are not my sister's child. The prince's tone was unwavering, as if he'd anticipated this moment all along. Xia Yaoshu's legs buckled in terror, nearly forcing her to her knees. He declared, "The princess has lost her mind to illness, but I remain utterly lucid. The princess's child was clearly, back then, I watched her with my own eyes." His words were cut short by a fit of violent coughing. The eldest princess coughed repeatedly, supported to her feet by her personal maid, who reached out to shield Xia Yaoshu. "You dare not harm her." Prince Xian's brow furrowed deeply, his expression shifting. With utter resignation, he lowered his sword. "Sister, how long will you remain deluded?" At that moment, the Empress Dowager's steady, commanding voice cut through the air. "Prince Xian, it is you who are deluded. How could uncle successfully establish kinship through blood with his niece? She has already been recognized as the eldest princess's daughter, a princess personally enfeoffed by this Empress Dowager." With the eldest princess and the Empress Dowager backing her, Xia Yaoshu's panicked heart settled completely. Seeing the Prince of Xian fall silent, she lifted the corners of her mouth, revealing a hint of triumphant satisfaction. Xia Yaoshu's gaze fell upon me, her eyes now tinged with a hint of provocation. Now that she had become a princess, she carried herself with considerable confidence within the palace. Moreover, Xia Yaoshu had the Empress Dowager and the eldest princess backing her. This time, she believed she could harness the power of their maternal clan, confident she would become the crown princess. Before the banquet concluded, the Grand Princess fainted from exhaustion. Imperial physician Gu promptly escorted her back to her chambers for treatment. As the First Lady and I prepared to leave the palace, we caught Xia Yaoshu's triumphant gaze fixed upon us. "TSK. What good is being the eldest daughter of the Marquis' household? Does that even matter? I'm the Empress Dowager's personally appointed princess, backed by the Duke's household. Only I can become crown princess." Her smugness betrayed her ignorance. She couldn't possibly fathom that within the imperial family, interests always came first, and the welfare of the realm took precedence. A year prior, when physician Gu had gone to take the eldest princess's pulse, he happened to be in the Empress Dowager's palace. After completing the diagnosis, he hadn't gone far when he overheard the Empress Dowager confiding her worries to those around her. The kingdom of Jiang was eager to arrange a marriage alliance with her princess. Fearing the eldest princess's distress, she and the emperor conspired to conceal this matter. The news was sealed with utmost secrecy. When physician Gu sent word to me, I vaguely connected it to events from my past life. Indeed, the empress of the Jiang dynasty had passed away early last year. She was a princess of lesser birth, married off for political alliance during the reign of the previous emperor. Following her death, the Jiang dynasty grew restless along the border, seizing numerous villages. The alliance between the Jiang and Yuan dynasties through marriage had begun a century prior. Even if the current emperor lacked a princess of marriageable age, he could not defy ancestral tradition and refuse the alliance. Within the entire imperial family, only the late emperor's legitimate daughter, the eldest princess, remained unmarried. Her daughter was born from her illicit affair with a beloved young general. They had met in Jiangnan. He had promised that after that battle, he would return with military honors to marry her. Yet his entire family perished in battle, leaving only the bloodline within the eldest princess's womb. The emperor lay awake all night, but ultimately granted the eldest princess's request to raise her unwed daughter and never seek a consort. Yet, the Jiang dynasty would formally send envoys within the year to seek the hand of a royal princess from the Yuan dynasty. He and the Empress Dowager had agonized over this for a full year, unable to devise a perfect solution. Until today, when the Empress Dowager had a sudden flash of insight, stopping Prince Xian from revealing the truth he was about to speak. Xia Yaoshu never could have imagined that the Empress Dowager's grand ceremony to bestow upon her the title of princess was to send her to the Jiang dynasty as a peace offering. The Empress of Jiang dynasty had passed away, Yet the emperor, barely 60, still reigned. Nominally a peace marriage, it was truly a marriage to ward off misfortune. When the imperial decree for the marriage arrived upon Xia Yaoshu half a month later, she utterly collapsed. Her chance at the crown princess position was forever lost. Daring not defy the edict, Xia Yaoshu could only accept it for the time being. Yet 2 days before her departure, Xia Yaoshu finally seized an opportunity to flee the palace and return to the Marquis' residence. She rushed back, her footsteps hurried and frantic. She never noticed me lurking in the shadows, watching her every move. Xia Yaoshu went straight to the First Lady's chambers. She pushed open the door and fell to her knees with a thud. "Mother!" she cried out hoarsely, tears streaming down her face, her eyes brimming with sorrow. I stood at the doorway, listening silently to her conversation with the First Lady. "Mother, you're the only one who can save me now. The Emperor insists I marry into the Jiang dynasty. Only now do I realize I'm not the eldest princess's biological daughter at all. She's always treated me as a substitute." Her sobs were pitiful, as if she were pouring out years of pent-up grievances. No wonder the eldest princess refused to perform the blood recognition ritual from the start. She knew full well I wasn't the princess. The real young princess died long ago, succumbing to a heart condition in her arms that year. And all these years, she's kept me playing the role of a dead person's substitute. And Imperial physician Gu Wei, that night, he laced the water with poison. After the princess fainted, he voluntarily confessed to the Empress Dowager, shifting all blame onto me. He claimed I orchestrated it. "Mother, please save your daughter." Uncle Gu produced the golden hairpin Xia Yaoshu had given his wife last year, proving he'd been bribed that night. As a result, he was implicated and demoted 2 ranks. Fortunately, his medical skills saved the princess's life, sparing him from execution and preserving his position. My hands clenched nervously, dreading that the First Lady would agree to Xia Yaoshu's terms. The First Lady smiled gently and whispered softly, "How do you want me to save you?" My heart sank, a chill washing over me. Could the lady truly choose to believe Xia Yaoshu and abandon me? Seeing the lady's consent, Xia Yaoshu's face lit up with excitement. She lifted the corners of her mouth, her voice cold as she declared, "I'll never marry that old emperor of the Jiang dynasty. I hear he's gravely ill." According to their customs, when an emperor dies, all his consorts, except the mother of the next emperor, are inherited by the new ruler. "Mother, I have a plan. Let Xia Fuiying marry in my place. After all, I was once the eldest legitimate daughter of the Marquis' household. Now we're merely reverting to our original status." My eyes flashed, and I pressed myself against the wall, barely restraining myself from rushing in. Xia Yaoshu spoke calmly. "I can settle for second best and return to being the eldest legitimate daughter. It doesn't matter, even if I can't become crown princess. So what? At least my life is spared. I can still marry Prince Xian as his consort. Besides, without Xia Fuiying, our Marquis' household still has another young lady who can enter the palace for the selection, Xiaolingi. Mother, now only you can help me. Xia Fuiying trusts you most of all." The words fell, and the room fell silent. After a long moment, a gentle, serene laugh drifted from within, light as a passing cloud. The First Lady stifled her laughter and urged softly, "Hurry in." Hearing this, the corner of my mouth lifted, my heart, suspended in tension, finally settling back into place. I slowly pushed open the door, my gaze landing on Xia Yaoshu. I watched her pupils dilate unconsciously, her expression of shock fixed upon me. I lowered my eyes and called out obediently, "Mother." The First Lady took my hand and urged Xia Yaoshu, "Please return, princess. My daughter has always been Fuiying, not the lofty Princess Yaoshu. The steward has prepared a carriage and will personally escort you back to the palace safely." From the moment Xia Yaoshu entered the estate, the steward had already notified the First Lady. Beads of tears the size of beans fell from Xia Yaoshu's eyes. She clung to the First Lady's legs, weeping pitifully. "Mother, it's me, Yaoshu. How can you not recognize me?" The First Lady gave a cold laugh and called out, "Escort our guest out." Xia Yaoshu stubbornly refused. kneeling to beg for forgiveness. Mother, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. The First Lady was determined to send Xiaoyashu away. When she saw her pleas were futile, her expression hardened instantly, and she roared. Xia Fuiying, do you think that just because I'm gone, you can take the position of crown princess? You're dreaming. You, a mere concubine's daughter, dare aspire to be crown princess? In the end, Xiaoyashu was forcibly loaded onto a carriage and returned to the imperial palace. Upon learning of her escape, palace officials reinforced the guards assigned to watch over her. On the day Xiaoyashu was sent off for the political marriage, the First Lady and I went to the city wall to watch. Watching her climb into the carriage with utter despair, tears streaming down her face, Xiaoyashu and I both carry memories from our past lives. We both knew that for a princess sent by the Yuan dynasty in a political marriage, survival was virtually impossible. She deserved it. Seeing her fall from grace brought me more satisfaction than anyone else. What awaited her was not paradise, but an endless abyss. After Xiaoyashu's departure, the Marquis' household began preparing for the imperial selection. On the day of my father's birthday banquet, the First Lady invited our clan's elders. Pulling me close before the assembled guests, she declared, I request the clan elders convene the ancestral hall to record Xia Fuiying's name beneath mine. She is my biological daughter, my only daughter. Furthermore, I am now with child. Whether it be a son or daughter, Xia Fuiying shall be the eldest legitimate daughter of the home mansion. Hearing of the First Lady's pregnancy, my father was overjoyed. I knelt before my father and the First Lady. Mother, father, Fuiying is willing to enter the palace for the imperial selection. Whether as a consort or a concubine, Fuiying accepts this willingly. Once in the palace, I will care for the Marquis' household and devote my life to it. I beg your permission to enter the palace. I had prepared thoroughly for this day. The teachings of the First Lady, the golden hairpin from my mother, and Lady Huey's attempts to dissuade me, all were preparations for this very moment. Whether or not I become crown princess, I cannot afford to lose this opportunity. After much deliberation by my father, he finally consented, allowing me to enter the palace as the eldest legitimate daughter of the Marquis' household for the selection. Henceforth, the Marquis' household would be my backing. On the day of the selection, I saw the crown prince again. We had crossed paths briefly at the grand banquet. I deliberately dropped my handkerchief before him, and we both bent to pick it up. After seeing me, the crown prince walked past. I nodded in acknowledgement. The jade ruby remained out of my grasp, and the position of crown princess was beyond my reach. Just as I was consumed by regret, the crown prince turned back. What is your name? I turned to curtsy. This humble maiden is Xia Fuiying, paying her respects to your highness. A faint smile touched his lips, a hint of amusement in his eyes. I've heard much about the Xia family. You've been quite the model daughter, never causing any scandal. Just as in my past life, the crown prince valued my quiet demeanor and my family's standing. I would never interfere in his affairs. That was why he had placed the jade ruby in my hands. After becoming crown princess, the crown prince and I lived in perfect harmony, yet never shared a bed. Not until the Empress Dowager urged us to produce an heir. Only then did he deign to touch me. That night, drunk, he took the initiative to spend the night in my chambers. Little did he know I'd once received instruction from Lady Yu. To some extent, I'd sought her counsel on matters. From then on, the crown prince delighted in staying in my chambers, spending entire days in intimate embrace with me. He said, Xia Fuiying, I've only now realized you're merely docile on the surface. Your mind is sharper than anyone's. I smiled gently and wrapped my arms around his waist. Your highness may rest assured. This servant's sharp mind is never directed at those who are mine. I relished it. And at this moment, my path to the clouds had only just begun. The end.